Welcome to the next episode of Take a Break.
Take a break. Keep the whole world guessing. Take a break from the human race. Take a break when it gets depressing. Take a break.
Pat Armistead is a voice for all that is joyful. In this series, she brings a fresh approach to emerging consciousness. Through conversational, social and emotional intelligence, she and her guests explore new models of leadership that embrace humour, empathy and compassion.
Well, welcome again, listeners, viewers, to Take a Break. It's my pleasure tonight to be introducing all the way from England, a lady by the name of Dion Johnson. And Dion calls herself a womanologist. So you might be wondering, right, what's a womanologist doing talking to a joyologist? Well, we're about to find out. Dion has been helping C-suite women develop as influencers. And we're going to find out some more about that as our conversation progresses. And she talks a lot about the influence gap. And that's that gap between potential and performance. So if you've been looking for tools, support, inspiration, some tactics, ideas to be moving forward and spreading your wings a bit, then this could be the conversation for you. Dion has a quote, or she has an amazing story on her website. And it goes like this. I'd like to just read it. I am a woman in a man's world. I am a black woman in a white man's world. A Christian in a secular world. I am facially different in a beauty-conscious world. Born with a facial disfigurement, she had corrective surgeries, and at age 4 was given an artificial eye and dark glasses. And Dion says, that was the beginning of my life behind the mask. Dion, it's a privilege to be talking to you this evening. You and I have a mutual friend, Sally Anderson, and when she meets people, she says, it's a profound privilege to be in your presence. And every time we're in the presence of another human, I am reminded of her saying that. Yeah. So I'm so delighted to have met you only a couple of weeks back. And we've had a couple of conversations since, and here we are now. So welcome and thank you for coming on board. I know it's early morning for you and it's evening for me. I want to ask you at the outset, where did the term womanologist come from?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me tell you what a profound privilege it is to be in your presence. The connection, I'm a really up close and personal girl, and so far my business has been up close and personal, and in this season where we're learning to connect better online, I'm repeatedly surprised at how strong a bond you can create with people online. Yep. So you're on the other side of the world, and it's a profound privilege to be connected with you this morning, this evening, wherever you are in the world. Yeah. So thank you for having me. So womanologist, it's a name that really came out of the work that I've been doing with women. I've always, throughout my whole career, 2 strong themes have been consistent, even though the roles have been different. So the first is leadership, that I always tend to rise to leadership positions or be leading from whatever position I am in, leading at whatever level I'm serving at. So I'm a natural leader. And women is a key feature of my whole career. So wherever I've been, I tend to I tend to gravitate towards serving women, imparting to women, touching women's lives, developing women, that kind of thing. Oh, and the third theme is personal development. So there's something about the identity and people growing as people that's really been consistent throughout my career. So so as I started to do this work of coaching women, leaving midwifery where I was, alongside women at perhaps the most womanly time of her life, and to leadership coaching and leadership development, working specifically with women in senior leadership, it's I find those themes playing out all over again. And one of my clients, repeatedly up until I had a conversation with this client, I've been hearing this theme being repeated. Dion, I thought I came to you to work out how to deal with my boss. I thought I came to you to work out how to work-life balance. I thought I came to you to, think about my next professional move. But actually what you've done is help me heal my woman, my inner woman, my feminine side, my femaleness, So this was feedback that was coming up a lot. One woman said to me, you're like a doctor. She said, you're like a doctor. And you heal, you've healed my inner woman. And so all this feedback really, as I'm reflecting on my brand and my business strategy, I really started to understand, I'm not like other leadership consultants. I'm not like any other leadership development. Like, I don't care so much about leadership. I really care about the leader. And I really care about the fact that it's the woman in her that is her biggest power. I've seen womanity. I've seen it in the labor room. I've seen it in hard life. I've seen womanity. And that's what I believe in. I believe in the power of womanity to change things. And so it just kind of came out of that. I'm the womanologist.
I love it. And I didn't know you'd been a midwife. So it's extraordinary. So you went from one area of birthing through to another.
Yeah. Yeah. That gives me such goosebumps, even just to hear you saying it. It's so beautiful to watch the power of a woman in labor and in birthing. And I think that is parallel to our potential in the marketplace. That there's been, listen, we've got some real challenges in our midst. I really care about the biggies like inequality and the injustices and the unfairness and just the way, the big giant problems that we have right now that we seem to think that they're just a feature of our world, that they're here with us and we don't know what to do with them. We've kind of just accepted that they're part of our experience, but I don't think they need to be. I think that womanity, the power that I've seen in that labor room, the power that I've seen in my experience of working with women who have conceived this thing and they have grown and adapted and stretched and changed to accommodate this thing, and then the power that it takes to bring that thing out into the world against all the odds is just, I want to bottle that and bring it to the boardroom where we're discussing how to bring forth these hefty solutions, these new solutions. I think womanity is the answer. I've seen it in the labor room, and now my work is really all about how do we bring that thing that I call womanity into our biggest challenges in the marketplace. Now that really excites me.
Yes. It's probably our most vulnerable time, but married right alongside it, our most powerful time. That, there's power and vulnerability in that. And I've always likened the pleasure and pain. It's that curious mix. And I think as you were talking then, I was just, imagining the uterus and all the work that part of the body does. And the degree of intention and harnessing and channeling the degree of flexibility.
Yes.
And you know, we just can't imagine that level of flexibility that it occurs, yet it does.
Yeah, it's such a powerful parallel because, you know, on one hand, humanity, is being squeezed by a uterus into another dimension of being.
Absolutely.
We're being forced to transition to a new dimension of living and being each other and leading and existing. We're being there's a real pressure pushing us to come to a new place. And then on the other hand, individuals are experiencing that internally, that there is this pressure happening to bring out what's within us. There is there's a uterus inside of us that's contracting, that's begging us to yield to the delivery of the stuff that's inside of us that the world needs right now. So, you know, birthing is a very powerful metaphor that I'm very excited about.
And I think, I know for myself, I've gone through several major rebirthing processes when I've faced adversity and wanted to, you know, find a new way. And it's always a painful process. It's always difficult. It's always been quite complex. However, as you kind of enter into the stream of that, then you begin to see the gosh, you know, even the when you think about the baby coming down and through the woman's body and the closeness of the woman's body around like the infant's shoulders, and as it slips through, it doesn't slip until right the very end. And it's much the same with adversity. There's that initial, a lot of work to do, and considerable effort, and it's sustained over a long period of time, that effort. And and that's where some of the magic, I think, is.
Yeah, it's a really very, very powerful metaphor. You know, people say all the time, you know, what a difference. How come you left that to go into this? Well, for me, it's really all the same work. You know, it's the same role. It's being alongside women as it's alongside women in labour or women in leadership. For me, it doesn't really matter. These women they're conceiving something and they're carrying something and they're bringing something out into the world. So for me, it's the same role.
Yes. And I love your use and choice of words there too. When we use those words and phrases, it conjures up something. And language is so important in that connection. So, you know, every woman, particularly those who have had a child that you address, will totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So as we're moving forward out of this COVID phenomena at the moment, I mean, part and parcel alongside that has been, well, in my experience, I've been moving this last 20 years in a fairly steep rising consciousness and developing my own awareness. And that's a journey that you can't think, oh, I'm done. I want to go back. It's like there's no going back. And
I haven't met a baby once in the labour room that isn't screaming protest at arriving to this place.
Love it. Beautiful. So what I wanted to ask you was, what qualities do you see well, for women, but it probably applies to men as well. What qualities are needed for leaders who are leading individuals and teams now, as we step out now and move forward? What's there for you in terms of?
I know that everybody knows the answer to this. We know that we need collaboration instead of competition. We know that we need, empathy, and we need, relation building, and we need to be able to inspire. We know all of these things about leadership. But I really think we have an opportunity here. It depends on what we want to accomplish. Because if we want more of the same, if we just want to keep trundling, plodding along, then actually we're doing all right. But if we want to change some stuff, if we want to tear down some giants, if we envision a life, a world, an organization, an industry that does better, I think we need people who can see that better, even when it looks impossible. Dare to see impossible better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we really need now. I think we've we're in a trance where we just kind of think that this is the way it is, that this is the way life has to be. There are some winners, there are some losers. There are some high people, there's some low people. There are some haves, there's some have-nots. Like, that's just the way it is. And I think the biggest thing that we need right now are visionaries that can see past that, beyond what we've accepted as normal. Like crazy people who can see and dream and think about a world that is not the same.
Yeah.
And then dare to speak up about that, and dare to insist. Just like I think all the time when Kennedy said we're going to the moon, it's not like everybody knew how to get to the moon, or even if it was possible. But he just put the stake in the sand and said that this is what we're going to do. And I think we need leaders like that who can say, this is where we're going to go. I think that leadership has become glorified management, and that leaders have become more about, keeping things ticking over, keeping things the same, rather than charting the course for impossible, crazy visions and futures. And I think we need more leaders who can do that. Where those visions come from, I think they come from love. And I think those crazy visions come from spirit. I think those visions come from another realm. And so we need leaders that can tap into an unseen realm, that, they can see things without any frame of reference. That's a spiritual capacity. And so I think we need spiritually connected leaders, people who can see the impossible and wonder where that came from, but be impregnated, to conceive, to be impregnated with things that we have never seen for our organization and for our industry and for our stakeholders, our customers and our clients and the people that we're connected to and the people that serve within our organizations. I think we need that. And I think that's why I say women are really suited to the kind of leader that we need right now, because I believe it's our function. Our function is that ability to know inside, to conceive, to receive signals and visions and things that don't exist yet, and to carry them and have them be real inside of us. Have them be real inside of us when there's just no evidence of it at all on the outside.
Do you think that's a capacity unique to women?
I think it's humanity has that capacity, but I really believe that women are the stewards of that capacity, the teachers of it. I think that women are the custodians of it. I think it's a human capacity, but that humanity has been charged with, these are just my beliefs, humanity has been charged with the responsibility to ensure that it exists in our homes, wherever we are, in our leadership, in our organizations, in our industry, in our world. And that when humanity is not functioning, then we see that humanity forgets itself. Humanity forgets this ability. Humanity stops plugging into this realm, this realm where answers are, solutions are, visions are, dreams are. Yeah, humanity stops plugging into that when humanity is diminished, when humanity is not functioning well. That's just my take on things.
I remember I nursed as well for 16 years in nurse education, and I had a couple of role models back in that period, and they were visionaries. They were like that. They foresaw, like I trained in hospital-based training, and they foresaw a new future for nurses where their education could be vastly improved, and where they could really emerge as professionals. And I worked with about 20 nurse educators in New South Wales, here in Australia, writing the programs that took nurse education out of hospitals, hospital-based training, and into universities. And that period of time, I mean, I wouldn't have used the term then, but I am now. We birthed that. Yeah. And I am so proud of that, because the hardest part was, it was, you know, you're training for safety, you know, for safe practice. So, you know, you can't just get 80%. There are a whole range of things where you either do or you don't. And, and getting that discipline, all right, so the learning has to be absorbed by the person, but then the integration of that into the body, and then you can embody it. Don't know what happened then. The sound was a bit different.
Sound is great.
Okay. And you know, and then, you know, the emergence after that, as that change came into place, the shift and the change and the dynamics. And I was not an academic. Studying nursing was quite hard for me, but I applied myself because I wanted to do it. And I think there's that, I didn't know where I wanted to go with it. So I didn't really have a vision, but it's become more apparent to me in latter years, actually after I left nursing. And so I've always maintained that association with health services and serving humanity. So like you, leaving the health system, but still delivering into serving humanity.
Very powerful.
Yes. You make a claim in your work and your practice saying that you'll take women where they've never been. Can you tell me a bit about that?
I really, so I work with women in senior leadership in industry. So, you know, my clients are CEOs, they're directors, they're heads, they're strategic leads in industry, in organizations, in institutions. And think about that. So just you know, depending on where you are in the world, just 70, 60, 70, 80, less than 100 years ago, women were not there. Women were not in senior leadership. Women were not in leadership in the marketplace. We just weren't, it was a place void of womanity. And here, yet now, we have, I don't know what, 17 heads of state are women in the world. You know, we have a number of, you know, women who are the absolute head of multi-global, you know, organizations and industries across the sectors. Women are featured. Yes, small numbers, but we're there. And what it's taken for us to get there has been, we've had to assimilate, we've had to play the game. We've had to, and there's a woman called Dr. Dion Johnson, and she says in her book, 7 Traits of Highly Successful Women on Boards, she says that we're like migrants, you know, and she makes that analogy that we've had to kind of come into a strange land, and we've had to, you know, find our feet, we've had to assimilate, we've had to, you know, see how things were done around here and do them like that. You know, we've had to integrate the customs and the culture and the this. And what I'm able to see when I work with my clients, I like to say woman to woman behind the mask, is that journey that it's taken for us to get into our positions has really, it's almost like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We've thrown out the things that didn't match the culture. We've thrown out those aspects of ourselves that weren't welcome or weren't usual or weren't requested. And we've thrown those bits of ourselves out. But those are the very things that we really need right now if industry is going to transform and industry is going to, you know, rise up and move to a brighter future, a transformed future. And so this is my fullest, strongest belief and conviction. And so when I'm working with these women, I realize that it's not more of the same leadership training that the typical leadership stuff that we need. We don't need another assertiveness training or another communication training course. We don't need that. What we really need is to reconnect with our truest identity. And this is not usual work. We're usually trying to be professional, whatever that is, whatever that looks like in this organization or this industry, you know, or we're usually trying to be like something outside there. And so the whole process of reconnecting to my value as a leader. So for me, you spoke about it right at the beginning. I am a Black woman. I'm a Black woman in a white man's world. I'm facially flawed in a beauty-obsessed world.
Yeah.
I am a Christian, like one of those happy-clappy type Christians in a secular world. And for so long, I believed that these things about me were black marks. You know, they were disqualifiers.
Yep.
They made it so that the influence that I was born to have felt obsolete. There was a lot of shame around not being like that white man over there. There was a lot of inner disqualifying going on. And the urge to try to fit in was incredible. And so I understand this personally.
Yes.
I understand the pain that becomes normal a normal pain that we live with when we are denying our truest selves and trying to be like something. I know this pain personally, and I have been on my own personal journey, and it's been of doing this work, of working out, how to heal the real me and bring her to industry.
Yes.
Despite what the culture says, despite what the normal is, despite what's expected. And I know that that's not an easy journey. So when I get testimonials of women that I'm working with, they always say, gosh, it's painful working with Dion. Gosh, it was hard working with Dion. And it would make me scream when, it made me wince when they say that, or I don't want to hurt people. But what I've realized is, just like the pain of labor, most people try to avoid pain at all costs. We're so busy trying to avoid being in touch with our pain, expressing pain, coming into things that cause pain, that we're so busy trying to not feel pain, that we don't get to do the real work of healing who we really are and our self-perception about that, handling our hindrances, and developing the kind of habits that bring that you to whatever it is that you're doing. Like, we just don't get to do that. So when I say I'm taking women to where they've never been, this is leadership development like you've never known it, is exactly what I say on my website. It's because I don't see many people, Sally's, the reason that Sally and I are friends is because Sally's in this game too. There aren't many people who say, so be it. If this is painful, so be it. If this is challenging, so be it. I'm going to hold you through it. I'm going to see you through it. I'm a midwife. I can handle your pain.
Yes.
I can handle your pushback as you're going through your pain. And we're going to get through this pain. And at the end, there will be a baby that goes into this world and creates colossal change.
Profound. Just profound. And I know this last 20 years of my work, nearly everyone that I've met has a hollow deep in their solar plexus, just sitting there below the heart somewhere. Is it soul space, heart space? But it's empty. And there's a need and a longing. There's something there, and there have been, many different ideas and suggestions posed about just what exactly that is.
Yeah.
But it's widespread. And one of the things that I believe formed this last 20 years is we've become a society that is grief illiterate. So we don't know how to grieve and have compassion or empathy for ourselves, let alone for others. You're kind of given 2 weeks to deal with whatever it was, and then, back into work. And we lack ritual and ceremony. We hardly come together to eat at the table as a family now, in the way that we did before. And we don't bring people together in reverence. We don't gather like we used to. I remember my mother, and especially my nana, would put out the best tablecloth and the nice crockery and have friends for afternoon tea. So we're not talking about that really, but the whole reverence and respect and regard that was given for coming together in communion. And that's
so amazing what you say, you know, because I've really been thinking about this. So in this season of COVID-19, I watched my stepfather, really struggle with the virus before his death 2 months ago now.
really...
So this is really real for me. So my dad died, and my mum, we were in agony over his illness and his sickness, and we had to be apart.
Yep.
So even as my mum nursed him in his home, we couldn't be there. We couldn't be with him. So he died, and in our custom, we're Jamaicans, and in our customs, there's this massive coming together. There's this massive coming together at the time of death, and that was no longer that couldn't happen. And also a really important part of the grieving process for us is handling the body. So, you know, sprucing. My dad was a dapper guy. You know,
yes.
He was a real kind of a, you know, suited and booted kind of man, very dignified, very dapper. And I made a video the other day saying my dad was buried in his pajamas. My dad was buried in his pajamas. When that hit me, when oh gosh.
So is that someone trying to ring you? It's okay. I'll just edit that bit out.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
I'm so sorry.
No. So
what
yeah,
was I saying?
come back to your dad being buried in his pajamas.
So he 2 months, a month before, if he had died a month before, that would just never have been the case. It would never have been that way. We would have definitely bought him a new suit. We'd have definitely bought him a new suit.
Mm.
We'd have shaved him up. We would have ceremoniously prepared his body for burial. And that was not allowed to happen. And so what that taught me was that this world that we're in right now, this season that we're in right now, is calling us to think about what are our non-negotiables and what is dispensable. What can be shaken away and what do we keep because we can't do without. I think that it's a really interesting thing, because if you'd asked me a month before my dad's death if you can bury my dad in his pajamas, the thought would have been laughable. It would have been unthinkable. It would have been like a month ago. It would have been something that I would say, we just cannot, like that wouldn't, it doesn't bear thinking about. And yet in this season, we're thinking about things that didn't bear thinking about. And in this season, we're considering things that we would never have considered before. Mm. And it has to do with what we think is absolutely required and what is not required, what is not essential. And that has, you know, that's scary and exciting all at the same time. Mm. Because I think that we're being requested, we're being actually forced to consider what's staying and what we're leaving behind as we re-enter a new normal or the next normal or whatever it is that you want to call it. We're going to have to work out what's essential and what's not. And that has all kinds of different meanings depending on who's listening to this. You know, that's a big question for us.
Mm. one of the focal points I have at the moment is just a short statement about rehumanizing the workplace. But it's not even the work. It's not even just the workplace. It's you know, part of what's been going on is has torn away at our humanity, and my observation has been to notice where there's compliance and where there's not, and where there's power and where there's just, you know, surrender, people giving up. And the, yeah, you know, a question for me is, what's my role in this? Really harnessing, what am I going to take forward? What that I'm getting older, so what do I really want to have? Like, I've had a lot of ideas about what I want to leave as my legacy, which is not any money, but you know, what I want that to be, and those thoughts are still there, but there's something very much deeper that I want to access and give voice to.
Yeah, me too, you know. I tell you, some of the things that are coming up for me is, I mean, I've been blown away by the scale of the response to this virus. I've been blown away. I mean, I watched the whole world in sync decide that this virus was not going to win, was not going to wipe us out. And it's blown my imagination wild, because I think, wow, if we can galvanize ourselves and rally ourselves like this against an enemy, coronavirus, then how can we do that for some of the other viruses, some of the other giant issues, some of the other giant problems that we have, like racism? That's the one on my mind this morning. I almost wondered if I could come on this call, because I have been thinking about the news about George Floyd, and I am thinking about the Anna Cooper videos. You know, I've just been, racism is on my mind this morning, and touching my heart in a very powerful way. I'm thinking, when are we gonna rally around together and start to chip away at that? And when are we going to end the injustices? When are we going to end the big problems, the big things? Like, we can do this because we've proven it with coronavirus. We've proven it, that we have the capacity to do hard things. Yes, it costs us dear. Yes, it's painful. Yes, you know, people have been going crazy because they haven't been able to go to the park or go on holiday. We've sacrificed, but we sacrificed with love in our hearts, because we refuse to let this thing win. And I'm wondering, is that a parallel for the way that we can move forward? Is that a parallel for leadership today? I think it is.
In the very near future, I would like to craft a speech with the same power as Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream."
Yeah.
That rallying cry, his command of language, the cadence, so the rhythm and the pattern.
Yeah.
And there's a rhythm in labour, you know.
Yeah.
It's cyclical in nature. So to see these parallels and to see how that can bring emotion to what we say. I had a radio station back in New Zealand, and I loved that, because you're talking to nobody. So you've got to be in that listening space of, who am I talking to? Who's the listener that I want to address? And then, you know, a few hours of talking, just talking is, radio becomes very background. So if you really want to be listened to, you've got to lead in occasionally and share a secret. You know, you've got to let people in on something that you're not telling anybody else. And then, you know, use that monotonal thing to lull people and have them, and then break them out of it with something. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we've been moving through. I had been unwell before COVID hit, so I was quite used to being at home alone. So it was not really a big rift for me. And I've also come to know a certain level of peace around living alone and able to be with myself. But even though I had all that, when it struck, I experienced incredible pangs of loneliness.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this emptiness that sits within a lot of people as well. That alone and separate experience.
Yes.
And
Well, alone and separate is the experience of Black people and other peoples. You know, alone and separate is not a new thing that didn't come with COVID-19.
No.
Alone and separate is a daily experience, a lived experience of some of the people that we lead. Some of the people that, you know, I say right now, we're all in public service. Whether you work in a bank or, you know, whether you're in contracting and construction or, you know, whatever industry you work in, we're all in public service now. Because as long as you work and lead people, then these people have been touched by an experience that in some way has highlighted this hollow that you speak about.
yes, people have been, and probably most people have been scared and scarred at some level through the experience, if not personally, then by merit of something that happened in their circle of influence. And I have, you know, part of my work moving forward, I so want to help leaders create the space now so that when people return to the workforce, yes, we've got to create that physical safety, but what are my actions to create that psychological safety for these? So
human safety.
Yes. Yeah. So we've kind of talked about that, but I wonder if you've got a few closing remarks about some gems to give any leaders that are listening about creating that space.
I think it really goes back to, I'm going to just talk because there's a picture in my mind that I don't know how they're linked yet, but I'll just share with you that when my daughter was having my granddaughter, she got it into her mind that she wanted to do labour without any pain relief. She wanted to have a natural childbirth. And she really read the books, she prayed, she got herself really centered, she really was ready for this. But the beginning of her labour didn't happen the way that she intended. Her waters broke before labour started, so now the baby was at risk of infection, and then the contractions didn't come naturally, so she needed to be induced. And so this process, I was with her throughout the whole process, and she, you know, even though it hadn't gone traditionally, she wanted to still try for her natural childbirth. And as a midwife, I know that when you intervene with nature, when you try to augment nature, when you try to induce labour, it's very much harsher than when it happens naturally.
Yeah.
It's just like it goes from 0 to 10 very fast. So because of that reality, it's usual that people just abandon their plans to do natural childbirth, that they go straight, they go straight to an epidural. They go straight to anesthesia. They go straight to the strongest pain relief, the drug that takes the pain away. But my daughter decided that she still wanted to have a go. And I remember being with her, not in a capacity as a midwife, but as a capacity as a mother. And I remember the response of the medical team when Bianca said that she wants to try to go for it naturally. They all told her what to expect. It was just raw fear mongering. You won't cope. It'll be overwhelming. It'll be too late to have an epidural. You won't manage. There was all of this information, and I asked everyone to go away. I looked my daughter in the eye. I told her, look, it's going to be painful when they give you this medicine. And it's going to be painful fast. What do you want to do about that? She looked me back in the eye and said, Mum, I want to give it a go. I want to give it a go. I said, fine. I went to the team and I said, no more talk about epidurals. She wants to give it a go and I'll support her. Well, she gave it a go, and she coped for hours with this very strong pain, and then she said, I need an epidural. And she had her epidural. And when I think back over that story, the thing that strikes me the most is the response to her decision to do this hard thing. It's like, are you crazy wanting to do this hard thing? Don't you realize the cost don't you realize that it's going to cost you dear to do this hard thing? Why would you want to put yourself through that? Stop this at once, one midwife said. Let's get on with the epidural. It's like we're afraid to do hard things. I don't even remember what your question was or why I started telling you this. But I think what I want to say in closing remarks is that we have an opportunity to do hard things. And I have seen Womanologist in extraordinary detail, up close and personal. And Womanologist is really the best of humanity, I believe. And I know that this thing ain't weak. This thing is powerful and able to stretch and grow in capacity to do very hard things. And I am calling for us to, in this season, with the experience of COVID-19 and how we are winning, I want us to take this capacity, this knowledge of the capacity that we have within each of us and all of us collectively to do hard things. We can. And we need leaders who are going to believe that and pull that out of every person they lead. That's what leadership is. Pull that out of every person they lead to a place that no one can see yet. To a place that no one can see yet, but that lives on the inside of us as leaders.
Yes.
It's time. It's time now to do hard things.
Dion, you have touched me to my core. I'm brought to tears, in fact. Thank you. I know this is going to land really well. Thank you.
Great.
If people need to find you, what's your website called?
So it's thewomanologist.com.
Okay.
And for those women leaders watching, come hang out with me on LinkedIn, because that's where I hang out a lot. And that's where you'll be drawn into whatever it is that I'm doing at the moment. So LinkedIn is a really good place to find me, and my website, www.thewomanologist.com.
Yeah, I'll put both of those in the credits.
Fantastic.
Dion, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Hang on a sec. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, you know, as like, I didn't know what you were going to say. So, but I had an idea, all right? But in the actual saying, I just really got, because I didn't know you were a midwife. So I don't know, I didn't see that anywhere. And I'm like, well, I'll be blown, of course, you know, and then all of your language, and then why you understand woman so well, and woman's capacity, and then your life experience, and the things that have shaped how you came.
Yeah.
So what I meant to ask you, but it doesn't matter, but what happened when you were 40? You had...
So I had this turnaround week, you know, where so what happened really was that my aunt died, which I think is really important somehow. It's like, and my aunt dying and then my dad dying and us having this conversation. It's just like, you know, there's something about something dying to bring new life forward. But anyway, my aunt died, and it was the same thing, you know, we have these massive gatherings, and at one of those evening gatherings, I saw a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for many, many years. You okay?
I want to take a photo of the screen. I just remembered. I never do, and I always think, oh, I wanted to do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
How do I do it without getting the camera in the road? Like so.
I'd love to have a copy of that when
Yeah.
you, yeah, great.
And I could probably do it that way too. Sorry.
So my aunt died, and I met in the process of everybody coming around and all this big ceremonial gatherings. I saw a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for years, like decades actually, and you know, we were catching up, and you know, we were really enthusiastically talking, and she had this 10-year-old son now, and but this 10-year-old boy was getting in the way of our conversation. Like, he was really, you know, he was just making funny noises, and he was really it was difficult to talk. So this woman said, you know, what's the matter with you, boy? Go and sit down. Can't you see we're talking? And he said, but mum, and he pointed to my face and he said, she's so ugly. And when he said it, it felt like somebody had punched me inside. But I really noticed, like a fly on the wall, I really noticed how his words crippled me inside, but on the outside, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell that I had been hurt like that.
Yeah.
And I noticed that as if I were a third person watching it. And then I kind of bounced that. The very next day, I was standing in my church foyer, and these kids came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, they pointed at my face, and then they giggled, they laughed, they jeered, they poked fun at my face, and then ran off. And then it was in that same place. I could not believe it, because that was the very next day. And then, you know, all that week, things were happening. Punch, that's it. It was all about my face. I just could not believe it. And then it was a funeral, and I saw my friend Jay, and she said, "Oh, Dion, I've got to tell you, I've been thinking about you since my son said that, and I'm really sorry." And, you know, oh my God. And my auntie, who had heard her speak, and said, "What happened?" And then she started relaying the story. And auntie said, "You know, don't worry about Dion. She doesn't care. She doesn't feel any way. She's okay. She's strong. She doesn't care. It doesn't hurt her. She's fine." But it was hurting. Yeah. And then this woman said, "No, but my son, he watches Star Trek, he watches Star Wars, he watches Doctor Who. He's into all of these aliens. So I don't see why he should go on like that about Dion." And I'm just standing here, and these two women are having a conversation, and I realize that now they're comparing me to monsters on TV shows, and it's hurting. It's hurting. It's hurting. It's hurting. And then, and then I lost my glasses. I lost my artificial eye and my glasses. It's fallen down the back of the radiator. And it sent me into a spin. I just thought, I can't go to my aunt's funeral. I don't have my glasses, blah, blah, blah. And ended up going to the funeral, but feeling really conscious of people looking at me without my glasses on. And realized that something was very, very wrong. I was hurt. I was not only hurting because I'm grieving, but hurting because now I didn't have my mask in place, and it was all too much. So long story short, the morning after the funeral, I woke up, and my niece, who was 3 at the time, had found my artificial eye that I had left carelessly on the side dresser. As she was playing around me as I slept, she'd found it, and it freaked her out. She couldn't understand in her 3-year-old mind why Auntie's eye was on the side. It was just too much for her. And so when I woke up and went to her, she was devastated. She was crawled up in a little ball in the corner. She couldn't look at me. She didn't want me to touch her. These little silent tears just streamed consistently down her cheek. And it just was the icing on the cake, because it was all happening in the same week. And so it sent me to my knees. I had my hands up in the air like this. I was saying, "God, something's really hurting. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, I really." And then I had a conversation with God, and He challenged me. "Why are you hiding, girl? When are you going to let people see the real you? Like, why don't you take those covers off and show up for real? Why don't you let people experience the true you?" Like, those questions, I don't know where they came from. I don't know why. I was gobsmacked by them. I just couldn't work out why God would be asking me that. I was like, surely He knew that I couldn't show up like this. Like, I couldn't force people to have to see me the way that I really am. And as I was saying, because I was talking out loud, because just how me and God roll, I was saying out loud, "But look at me. How can I not wear my dark glasses? How can I not wear this artificial eye? Like, I have to be kind to people. I have to not let people see the real me. Like, it wouldn't be fair to let people see the real me." And as that was coming out of my mouth, another part of me was like this fly on the wall, thinking, "That's bullshit. What do you mean? What do you mean it wouldn't be fair to let people see the real you? That doesn't sound right." What do you mean what do you mean it would be cruel to let people see the real you? And what's up with that? I was distraught and I was hurt, but I was also, on the other side, I was indignant. Like, that doesn't sound good to me. That doesn't sound correct. Like, something sounds wrong with that. So, while I was down there on my knees with my hands up in the air, my attitude switched. And I just, I kind of got to this place where I'm like, no. I'm going to have to find a way to show up for real. I'm going to have to find a way to let people see me. Like, I didn't know what that meant right then.
Yep.
Like, I think back then I was talking about my artificial eye and dark glasses. I was going to learn to show up without that. But that was the opening to me learning about what it means to show up for real, you know, in all the ways, in all the dimensions, on all levels. So that was like the opening. That happened, you know, that was in 2009. So that's like 11 years now, 11 years of journeying, this learning how to show up for real. It's the beginning of it all.
Yeah. I'm speechless. Bless you. Mm? Thank you. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Yep. Go well. Have the most awesome day.
Take a break.
Thanks for taking a break with Pat Armistead.
Take a break.
Join us next time for more.
Take a break.
And be sure to like, share and subscribe for updates. And don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Bye for now.